Well, hello people. It's been a while, but anyways, welcome back to another episode of Tanks with CS. Sorry about the delay, but it's always good to be back, and it's always good to have you back. You know how it is. So, today's episode is going to be fairly short, if not sweet. It's a bit of a preview, if not a rushed overview, for the Tier A American medium tank, the Pershing M26. I guess in a way, you also showcased, bits and pieces of, this strategy I've been using, at least on this map, when, playing American tanks, or quite frankly, tanks with good depressions and decent turret armor. So, I guess, it's a tier 9 game, and medium, and mid-tier, not low tier, but mid-tier, and, we are on cliff. As many of you guys probably noticed about this map, those two mounds in the middle of the map, it's quite frankly a very noticeable feature. In particular, the hill to the east side of the map, which I'm heading towards right now, it's essentially a terrain feature you can climb onto and utilize in a tank. Of course, the route to the top is kind of precarious, but it can be done. And one might ask, when there are so many, obvious firing lines and corridors on the map, such as, the tank alley on the west side of the map, or the road around the bend of the cliff on the east side of the map, or, even the open area in the middle of the map, why would somebody, try to navigate the relatively treacherous feature of the hill? And I will say that, the hill actually allows you to, get pretty good spots in vision and, allow you to scout out the enemy's positions and essentially how the entirety of the enemy team deploys. And, it might not be immediately obvious, especially if you're a new player, but ultimately, that's going to be something that matters a lot. It allows you to know when to and how to engage enemies by knowing their position, so on and so forth. Another thing is, because the depression value for the Pershing, as with many of the medium tanks the Americans have, and quite frankly some of the British tanks, the depression is good, so they can shoot down fairly easily from an elevated position. And sometimes, the enemies might have problem replying to you because, there's obstacles in the way and there's hard cover, or much better, even in some cases, they might not have enough elevation to aim up. Meanwhile, while you're shooting down, not only, your position tends to be protected, and you tend not to be very much exposed, but usually, you're also able to put in rounds into the relatively vulnerable sections of enemies' tanks' armor schemes, such as top armor or side armor, which is almost always never designed or built enough to resist a direct hit. I mean, sure, if you are playing a tier 8 medium without using premium ammunition, and let's say the enemy have a Type 5 heavy or a mouse, you might still struggle against their side armor or even their top armor. Or perhaps you hit a module and bounce, or there's going to be problems. But still, overall compared to what you'll be dealing with, more of a conventional, confrontation or engagement, you're much better off. And if you look at what I'm doing right now, essentially, by periodically crusting this ridge and then exposing and then hiding myself behind various lumps on the hill, whether they be boulders or just features on terrain, I essentially effectively protected my my hull of the tank, which is relatively vulnerable. And of course, obviously in order to bring your gun to bear, you more or less have to expose your turret, because that's where your gun's mounted. But if you look at it from the bright side, one thing, you'll probably figure out for sure is the fact that most tanks that were designed with good gun depression tends to also have a relatively strong turret front. Because in a sense that, the engineers and designers purposefully sacrificed armors elsewhere to focus on better protecting the part of the tank that's most likely to be hit. I guess the part of the tank that's deliberately exposed, if you will. So essentially at this point, I have successfully neutralized and cleared every single enemy deployed in the middle part of the map. But as it seems, we have a slight lead, but perhaps, for a win it's still insufficient. And it seems that, the enemies are mostly clustered in two groups. They have a couple on the east side holding up our heavies around the bend on the cliff of the hill. As with what they're doing on the west side of the map, they're very much playing a passive defensive fight, which is annoying, but more likely than anything they'll probably lose. So now I'm finally climbing the rest of the hill. If you're up to me, I probably would have done this earlier, but I know that if you get on this hill before neutralize the enemies that could be shooting you in the back or in the flank from the middle of the map, which can in a way provide some kind of covering fire towards this approach to the hill, then the situation would be kind of risky. And before I even got to the top of the hill, I kind of got confronted, not bomb rushed, by the enemy T-54, which is a Tier 9 Soviet medium tank. And obviously a tank that has significantly more armor than my tank. Maybe only marginally more turret armor. The guy essentially has a 220mm effective turret front, but it's eggshell shaped and a little more trollish than the boxier but more Mendlet heavy American style turret front. If anything, the T-54 has a significantly stronger hull. That's 120mm versus the 100mm I have, and it's much better angled at 60 degrees. But also in a sense, I kind of lucked out because the enemy T-54 only has a stock 100mm that obviously has less than 200mm penetration, as well as only 250 alpha versus 320 alpha on the T-54's top guns. And by retreating and pushing the enemy, allowing the enemy to fall, and he ended up flipping himself, which renders him unable to return fire or do anything about me. But then again, in that kind of situation, when you have a good turret front and when you have good depression, you can more easily bring your gun to bear and more easily keep your gun trained on the enemy regardless of the terrain features you're navigating or much rather negotiating under your treads. So, looking back, perhaps, it's always the little things about the tanks that makes the tank good. One will argue that, the Pershing is kind of unremarkable for a Tier 8 medium. Armor's good, but not crazy. The gun span's good, but not German or anything exotic. Alpha's modest at 240. Mobility is decent, but not great. But it's always the little nuances of the tanks that makes them matter. those are the things that makes a good tank a good tank. So I guess this is finally my ace tanker game. Quite frankly, my very first one in the Pershing. After owning a tank for well over a year, it's kind of bittersweet. It's a good tank, and I know it, and I like it a lot. But it took me a while for me to fully master and exhibit what the tank's capable of. 4 kills, obviously top in XP and top in damage. Obviously, the raw damage number, as much as they matter, is not everything, because I've also done over 2k in spotting and bounce over 1k. Good user training and good turret really matters a lot.